Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Roger, of course, Grubus Games Unlimited, and we are getting close to the demo of our game here. Welcome, everyone. It is very nice for you to be here. This video, of course, is going to wrap up a churn of Dungeon Crusade. We're going to be looking at the very last phase, which is the monster phase. Of course, we looked at the top of a churn, upkeep. Then we looked at encounter phase, guardian phase, hero phase. Now it's the monsters churn in the monsters phase. So we are going to be looking at that and then getting right into our demo. So let me just put this down and greet you and say hello. And it is a few days before Christmas, right? Less than a week. So I first want to say I hope everybody has a really nice holiday. And I want to say thank you for spending some time with me. It's a really awesome time in life, a great season in our life. We're wrapping up Dungeon Crusade. It's shipping out in early 2020. And I truly mean it from the heart. I love talking with you guys and talking with you in the comments and getting you acclimated to the game. It's just, I know I'm very elated when I talk to you. I'm just very excited for all of us, you know, to build a big community around this game. And of course, see your guys' quests and scenarios. So I wanted to say, there's a few new subscribers. As always, welcome. We are very glad that you're here. I hope you enjoy all the videos that I've been doing for you, and you're getting more excited with the game, and you're kind of hopefully learning more about it. That's my ultimate goal, is to get you very comfortable with it so you know what's going on. While it is a massive game, make no mistake, I designed it with very easy game mechanics and stuff that just kind of makes sense. So hopefully you're kind of through the series, you're kind of seeing that. It's huge, but it's fairly easy mechanics. All right, so I wanted to let you know that. And of course, as I said, when we finish this up, we're going to be going right into the demo, which I'm very fired up to play for you. Let's get into the monster phase. However, I really thought about this, and what I'd like to do is, and hopefully be brisk with it, I would like to talk to you about the monsters in the game, okay? So kind of like the subcategories. Yes, we're going to learn about the monster phase, but first I'd like to go over the monsters in the game. I think you would like to know about the monsters and the levels, and then we're going to look at the patrol route system. And this is an exclusive game mechanic that I created years ago for Dungeon Crusade that gives players, and something I've always wanted as a kid, a living dungeon experience where monsters move with unpredictable movement patterns, and you as a player will never know really where they're going to go. You never have to think for the monsters in this game. And one of the things I've said for years about these games is, when I'm a diehard soloist gamer. So with Grubus Games Unlimited, we are going to be creating games exclusively for the soloist gamer and, of course, the co-op crowd. And I just have a lot of very exciting game mechanics to share with you in these upcoming games that'll give you a really awesome experience playing solo against kind of like this invisible AI. So we're going to talk about the patrol route system. So let me put this camera down. And I actually had to make notes this time because I'm very passionate about the monsters and this patrol route system, and I'd like to teach it to you. So before we go over the monster phase, let's talk about the hierarchy of monsters. And you may already know this, but we'll go over it so in case anyone else is tuning in. 3 different divisions of monsters as of right now. That could change in the expansion. Right now we have minions. Okay, minions go from level 1, 2, and 3. Minions traverse the dungeon, the corridors, the hallways of the dungeon, okay? They never go into the chambers. They go through the hallways and corridors of the dungeon. Those are minions. Champion monsters are right here. Remember those monster tokens we looked at in the last video? Okay, those are in direct correlation with champion monsters. Champion monsters reside in the chambers of the dungeon and are usually safeguarding quest items that the heroes need, okay? Finally, guardians. These are the big, like, boss-like creatures. These also roam the hallways of the dungeon. Like, here's Razorfang right here. Check him out. And there's 8 guardians that I created for the game. Let's hopefully go here and get it in focus so you can see them. And focus now. So there he is. There is Razorfang. And I worked with the amazing Freddie Lopez. He painted all of them. So there's like Razorfang and Banevic and Red Widow and Nefarian and Lord Blackhand. There's a bunch of guardians. And they can level through 1 to 4. So that's the hierarchy of monsters right there. So talking about that, let me take you over here. And I know I've talked about this before also, but since we're talking about the monster phase and we're wrapping all this up, I want to kind of like encompass everything, put everything into the monster phase and talk about the monsters a bit. Get this over here. In this land of Avalon, there's 6 different warfare types. There's physical warfare. Again, it's like red. I think I talked about this before. So physical warfare, warfare dice. Those deal with like swords. Next up, there's ranged warfare. Bows, crossbows, ranged warfare. Those are the warfare dice. Next, we're going to look at arcane warfare. Think of staffs. Okay, so there's that. There's the green warfare dice. Next is mythical warfare. Think of daggers. See that? There is the purple or the mythical warfare dice. Next is spiritual. Spiritual warfare, if you think of like maces and scepters and that, like your cleric, priest, use those kind of weapons. Or they could wield anything, but general, that's what they're kind of start out with. So there's that. Finally, chaos warfare, axes. And so there's the chaos warfare dice. So I'm telling you this because I want you to know that in the land of Avalon, every monster and creature in this game, as in minions, champions, and guardians, are versed in 3 of the 6. So you may meet, like, I believe Banevic, the big ogre-like guardian. He is versed in mythical, chaos, and physical. So those are the 3 that he's versed in. So you're going to see that, throughout this game, your heroes are going to encounter monsters that are, have a different combination. Think of these as fighting styles. I think that's the best way to say it. And as we discussed in the hero phase, heroes are not, they're proficient in a few of these. They're kind of middle of the road in some and kind of bad in some of these, as we're going to see in our demo. And so I wanted to accomplish true party building. These fantasy dungeon games, these dungeon crawl games, that's to me what it is. And I think it's kind of lacking in these games. So with Dungeon Crusade, I wanted to address that, where you really have to rally heroes together for a party of hero, up to 3 heroes, to take down like guardian monsters and high-level champion monsters. So that is the point that I wanted to make here, that there are these 6 warfare types. Every creature and monster is versed in 3 of those. Let me clear this up. Let's talk real quick about minions, and it's important to talk about that for what's coming up. And of course, just to get you more acclimated to the game, how about this is the perfect place to discuss this. Before that, I consulted my note. 2 forms of combat in Dungeon Crusade. Uses the same warfare dice, but let me explain this. Minions and guardian monsters, of course, traverse the dungeon on the patrol route system, which we're going to get to. So they go through the corridors and the hallways of the dungeon. There's dungeon combat. So let's just say right here, this would be ridiculous. Let's say Faith attacked Razorfang right here. Set this down. Hopefully not knock anything over. Okay. So let's say it's Faith's turn and she attacks Razorfang. She would definitely want to rally a hero too for this, because this thing is tough. She would attack, in those phases of combat 1 time. Then, it would be, of course, the monster phase, which we're going into. Razorfang could attack 1 time to her. So it's kind of like, back and forth. So that's dungeon combat. In our demo, we're on that quest for a gift for Simon. You know, Sophia had Zeke and Cerbrenus, you know, find this magical ruby stone ring. They're going to be going into the Well of Eternity chambers and combating a champion monster. Champion monsters reside in the chambers of the dungeon. And again, they're usually safeguarding quest items. So in chamber combat, it's persistent. The battle is persistent. You keep, you know, it's going to go over a series of rounds until one of three things happen. The heroes prevail and slay the champion monster, or the champion monster could kill the hero or heroes, or the third outcome, the heroes are just going to evade out of the chamber. If that monster is too tough, they're going to evade out, where they just can't, you know, defeat it. And we'll get to that. But as a side note, if heroes ever evade out, they run out. This is, and some people have asked this. I'm going to grab this token right here. See the incantation track here? When a hero exits a dungeon where they can't beat a champion monster, let's say it's a level 1 monster. Okay, you evaded out. That champion monster starts an incantation. Level 1. You know, level 1 monster, so it can do a level 1 incantation. Let's suppose that another set of heroes go into, I don't know, a chamber. I'm going to borrow this. Let's go, they go into a chamber and face off against a level 2 monster. They also evade out. You're going to put 2 tokens on the incantation track. See how it's filling up? You know, level 2 monster, 2 tokens. Let's say this track was cleared and they tried to fight a level 3 monster at level 1, which would be reckless. 3 tokens. If this track ever is fulfilled, an incantation is you know, goes into effect and a hex is placed over the village. We won't get into hexes over villages, but just know it's very bad. It has some very detrimental effects. If the terror level goes up, minion population goes up, the bazaar loses, you know, health potions and torches. So this can cause real havoc. You definitely don't want that incantation track to fill up. You always want to try to slay that champion monster in that chamber. So I just wanted to touch on that for you as a side note. So we just learned that 2 forms of combat: dungeon combat in the corridors and hallways, you know, 1 turn apiece, kind of like, you know, you go, I go, that kind of thing, on each other's turn. Then we learned about chamber combat, persistent, it keeps going. So I wanted to do that to change up, you know, to keep it fresh for people. So you always have something different, you know, same combat system, but you see the difference, persistent, turn by turn. So I did want to touch on that. Again, this will be a little bit long of a video, but you're going to go away with it with a great amount of knowledge of Dungeon Crusade after it. So now we're going to talk about the minions. Minions, let me put you back over here. And this, I don't think I've ever got this in depth before, so you may find this very interesting to learn. There is 10 unique minions in the game. And I could better show this to you than explain it. Let's take a look at these guys. These are overgrown Blackrock Vipers. These are minions, of course. I grabbed their level 3 cards, but you see, Freddy Lopez again. I asked him to paint these. Amazing. So notice these colored crystals. There's a blue, red, and green, okay? Red and green minions are elites. Notice the gold stars. When you see these, elite monsters carry nasty special abilities. When you see a minion with a blue crystal, that's a normal version. They just have the origin stories I wrote for them of where they came from in Avalon. Okay? So we have 2, you know, red and green, or, you know, when you see a monster with a red and green crystal, elites. When you see them with a blue, that's a normal version. So you don't have to worry about them carrying a nasty special ability. Looking at their miniatures, that's why I wanted to color code these, so you could easily keep track of these guys in the game. Again, Freddy Lopez, very awesome. So notice, so there's, it goes on, you know, with the green crystal. There's the one with the red base. And again, I have to say, I like these bases, like this final stuff. I like that shiny, bright colors that, you know, on these retro cardboard minis. So notice that, we'll put that down there. And then, of course, blue. So that, So now you can see, so there's 10 unique minions in the game. However, you know, with 3 in that group, that's a total of 30 minions per level. So there's 90 minions in each, you know, in each minion. Well, you know, in a total of all minion decks. So there's 30, 30, and 30, level 1, 2, and 3. Before we leave special abilities, I'd like to tell you that for each one, I went, you know, I think I'm not going to tell you how much I love these games because you already know, but I wanted to give each minion unique special abilities that you would not find on any of the other ones. So for example, these overgrown Blackrock Vipers, you're going to have to test them, or you're going to fight it in mythical warfare. If a hero fails, you know, it takes damage in a mythical warfare rounds, the Viper bites the hero. And you're going to have to roll the D3. Whatever the result is, you lose essence. So that's one special ability. Let's take a look over here. Shadow Dweller. That's like these big spiders here, these overgrown spiders. Very nasty creatures. They can web, the elite versions can web your heroes. They're going to have to test strength. I think it's 12. You have to test strength to break the web. So while you're tangled up in a web, possibly, there's a chance it could web you, or web your hero. That thing's running out of the dungeon to raid the village. So that's one special ability. Orc Siege Breakers, they have a thing called Rampage. Remember, if a raiding minion gets out, which we're going to talk about, if they raid the village, you're going to have to raise the terror level up by 1. Well, what an Orc Siege Breaker does is when it raids the village, you have to roll a d20. And on a certain amount or a certain value or result, it'll activate. Rampage activates. You're going to have to raise it up again. And you'll not find that in any other minion. A couple others, Blackwood Prowler. See that red medallion? I call it the Blood Moon Amulet. If this activates before combat, all its warfare values go up by +3. So on and so forth. You'll always find something different in all the minions. I wasn't just going to make a cookie cutter and have them all just the same, you know, unless it's one of the normal versions. But then again, they'll have different warfare values. And one interesting minion I'll tell you about that's in there. There's a special ability called Screeching Alarm. So let's say that this minion is right here and it sees the hero and turns into a raiding minion. It lets out this screech. Any minion within a 6-space radius at level 1 can hear that. They convert into raiding minions. So there you go. You got to be careful with these minions. Although they're, you know, fairly easy to kill, they could have very detrimental effects on your heroes. So that's a little bit about that. So I wanted to let you guys know that, you know, these things have special abilities. There's elite and normal versions. Let us talk about the last thing is when minions spawn into the dungeon. Quite simply, we saw it, I think, in the Guardian phase. Remember these spawn points with these like glowing globes here, and they have numbers. There's, you know, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Quite simply, when those minions come into the dungeon, you roll a d8, like we saw. So whatever's rolled, 6. Okay, so let's just say this skeletal grunt was spawning in. You would find 6 right there, and that's what would spawn in. So you can see that every game, you know, or every time, it's random where all these minions show up. When minions come into the dungeon, let's just say this skeletal grunt spawned in, so it's here. Minions start out as vagrant minions. Okay, it's an important rule. Minions start out as vagrant minions. And, you know, vagrant means just wandering aimlessly. You know, they just wander around. They're unaware of any of the hero's presence. However, if this thing, when it moves, it has a line of sight of 4. If it sees a hero, you're going to have to take a raid token right here. That vagrant minion has now switched into a raiding minion. So that's its monster right here, the skeletal grunt. Place that on it. That skeletal grunt will now take the easiest way to get out following these red bloody arrows. See the bloody arrows here? So it's going to escape, and we're going to come back to this, what happens when it encounters a hero. and make its way out of the dungeon over to the village to raise the terror level up. So you've got to watch raiding minions. They can lose you the game. Again, they're not hard to kill, but they can lose you the game. We're going to probably see this in our demo. But let's say that it was this minion's turn and it was moving. A raiding minion has a special ability, all of them do, called hit and run tactics. As soon as it encounters a hero, it holds on to its movement. So let's say that, from a roll of a d6, let's say that this minion had 7 movement. They have a base movement of 2 and they rolled a 5, so it had 7. So let's say it just went 1, 2. It's going to hold on that 5. It's going to do hit and run tactics. It's going to have a combat with Enwin, and then depending on if it lives, it will finish its movement. Okay? But also know it's in the rules. Minions will never go out of its way to hit a hero. So let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say that Enwin was right here, okay, on that square. And we'll say that the skeletal grunt was here and had 7 movement. It would just go 1, 2, 3. It's not going to go after Enwin. 4, 5, 6, 7. A raiding minion's primary goal is to raise the terror level over in the village. So it's not going to go out of its way even this far to attack a hero. This is actually a good video there's a lot of good information in here for you. So even that one little space, it doesn't care. It's first, kind of like AI thing, script. I want to get out of this dungeon. I want to raid the village. I want to raise this terror level because I want the heroes to lose. However, if anyone was here and it was here and it had 7 movement, what would it do? It would do hit and run tactics. 1, 2, 3. It's going to attack that hero. If it survives, it's going to finish its movement. Very simple. Remember, hit and run tactics. So that is a little bit about raiding minions. If they see a hero, okay? Let's talk about this and on its turn, and then we're going to get onto the patrol route system after we clear up a few things with other monsters here. When this minion moves, let's go over here again. This is a longer video, but there's a lot of good information I think that you'll learn from this. Oh, here it is. Notice right here, this is the raid difficulty. And this has to deal with minions. Let's say for our demo, we're going to be playing on easy, which is 12. So I'll put this colored red crystal on here. And what that simply means is that when you roll for this monster, if it was on a patrol route system here, which we're going to discuss, you're going to roll a d12 along with the patrol route die. And since it has a base movement of 2, you're going to, of course, roll it says on its card a d6. You're going to roll all these dice. So this is called the raid die. Remember how we just looked over there? If a result of 12 would ever come up, whatever 12 is, I think it is right here. So if that value would ever roll, like what was set on the chart, that's going to convert into a raiding minion. You're going to put a raid token on its card. Just like as if it saw a hero. So this is how I've told people, and it kind of makes the most sense. Kind of think, and we're getting a little bit further ahead when we get into the patrol route system, but so kind of think of like, here's the patrol route die. And it's here on the patrol, it's on a spawn point, or it's going to pick up another patrol route. So kind of think like these are in its head, like spinning around, like what's this monster kind of thinking? Well, it's thinking it's going to go on the purple patrol route. Am I going to raid? Nope, I'm not going to raid. It's only a 1. However, if it was a 12, then it's like this minion is thinking, I said, I'm going to raid the village. So kind of think of this as like their AI. It's like spinning around. And then, of course, for their movement, what they'll move on their turn. So hopefully you see how that kind of works. But then, again, going back to this, you could set this for 20. Notice the 20 there, that's novice, meaning you're going to roll a d20. On a result of 20, it's going to flip from a vagrant minion to a raiding minion. If you're really insane, which I guarantee you, you load this dungeon up with a bunch of minions and put this on master, which is a d4, the game will be over pretty quick. But you're going to roll a d4. On a result of a 4, it's going to convert to a raiding minion. You could put it on 10 here. You're going to use a d10. That means, of course, there's a 10% chance it's going to convert into a raiding minion. Usually, of course, a D10 or D8, D6. So the nice thing is, just like I said about everything, you can customize the game for your play style, you know, and especially when we look at the minion population track, you know, the minion population in this track that keeps track of how many minions are in the dungeon. So that's a little bit about vagrant minions and raiding minions. And what I think I'm going to do real quick is we're going to finish up with this, and I'm going to stop this and then do one more video about the patrol route system for you. Let's go back over here to chamber battles, and we're going to wrap this up for you. We are looking, of course, at champion monsters. This is actually a level 3. This is a fallen king. How we talked about, you know how there's these the normal versions and elite. There's also normal and elite champion monsters. So there's a fallen king for you. Hopefully he comes into focus. And I'm not going to spoil it, but when you see this, when you see the elite version of this thing, it can do something pretty nasty to your heroes. Let's try to get that in focus. Hopefully it does. Move over here. I left those things down there. There we go. That's a fallen king. Notice the silver star. Just has its normal, it has the origin stories I wrote for it. That's a pretty tough monster. However, I don't want to give too much away. We can see here is that's the elite version. Notice the gold star at the top left. And then this has a special ability called Hand of the Sovereign. And it's a before combat thing. And I'll tell you what, I'll say this much. Hopefully you rally heroes if you fight this thing. But Hand of the Sovereign is you have to select a hero to test strength. And that hero has to rush up to this fallen king and try to break that enchanted hand. And you know what? We're this close today. I'm going to tell you what happens. What its special ability is, you have to test strength to break its enchanted hand, okay? If that hero fails, that Hand of the Sovereign activates. You're going to have to take a D8 and roll. The fallen king is going to teleport that hero to that spawn point. This ain't Candyland, folks. This is Dungeon Crusade. So when you get into those level 3 chambers right here, you know, level 3 chamber, and you're going to pick, you know, those from the champion monster deck, level 3, you want to have 3 heroes rallied in case you have to deal, you know, with this thing. So there you go. So I'll tell you what, this one was pretty long, but I think we covered a lot of ground, and I think you have a really good understanding of like dungeon combat and chamber combat, minions and raiding and all that. So when you come back, we're just going to wrap it up with the patrol route system, and I think I want to devote, you know, a good 10 minutes to that because I'm very excited to share this with you, and I think you'll enjoy it. So let's come on back, let's wrap this up, and what the monster phase is, and on to our demo. I'll see you in a few.